I'm Johnny D, and we're having a very dark day today. The Phantom has fallen ill, and the shaman heard his call, and he came here today. He spent a lot of time with him, alone in the bedroom. He wouldn't even let me watch what he was doing. So the Phantom is not with us today, but we're going to continue with the presentation anyway. The part that I want to do, yesterday I said we were finished, and then I realized that there's a huge part of the painting that I haven't even come close to yet. Yes, so I'm going to do that part with you today without the Phantom, because he knows everything that I'm going to be telling him anyway. He knows everything there is to know about death. He knows more than I do. So what I want to do today is I want to present to you the part of the painting that I refer to as the pits of hell, or the caves. Yes, there are 4 caves, and each cave is a particular pass in this grand voyage. So the first thing that I want to show you today is the bat out of hell. The bat out of hell I originally painted just before taking a trip to Mexico with my soulmate, Lenny. And as would happen in Mexico, I got stung by a stingray. Well, I didn't get stung by it. You know those stingrays that are on the bottom of the ocean? Yes, I was taken by a huge wave, and I crashed down right on top of one of these things, and I could feel it squirming from under my foot, and I got poisoned. And this is the poison apparently that killed Hercules, and it did lead to delusions. It led to paralysis. It led to a mini heart attack. If I hadn't been so healthy at the time, I might have died. I didn't get the antidote, and you're supposed to get the antidote. It's a story in my book that's called Viva Mexico, yeah, the Mataraya. And so anyway, when I fell asleep with that poison in the system, I had a dream about this creature that tried to steal my soul. It looked like a huge dog with a big cape, and I saw it in the corner of my bedroom. And I stopped, I woke up and I was terrified. And I saw it standing there, and I thought, ooh, this is how scary. And it just curled over to Lenny, and I held on to him and fell back asleep. Came into my dream world, and it latched on to me by the torso with some kind of metal clasps that protruded from its body. It held me with its leathery wings, and with its big dog head, and by my ear it said, "Hello, sweetheart." And it latched onto me, and it pulled my soul right out of my body. I could see myself and my husband lying in bed. Took me outside. We went through the crust of the floor of the balcony below, the balcony below. We went through the crust of the earth. And then as at first it was fun, but as we kept on descending, I realized that it was getting darker and darker and darker, and colder and colder and colder. And the only thing I could hear was the flapping of his leathery wings and his breathing. And I screamed, and I said, "No! I'm not supposed to go down, I'm supposed to go up!" And the thing screamed, and he threw me on the side of the road, or the side of the tunnel, and he kept on going downwards. Yeah? So I thought to myself, well, that's it. I'm dead. Nobody's going to find me here. It's over. You know, the poison got to me, and I'm dead. Then I woke up, and I was at the mouth of a tunnel. And lying in the dirt, I came to consciousness at the mouth of the tunnel. And I saw these 2 men in long robes with long white beards and long white hair. And they were sweeping up with these old brooms, and they were sweeping up at the entrance of the tunnel. And the younger one, he saw me there, and he came running, and he came to check me out. And he said, "Oh no, not her!" And the other god came running, the older man, and he said, what happened? And he says, look who I found. And the older one looked down and he says, "Oh my God, this isn't good. We need her for the mission." So he picked me up and he put me across his knee and he started feeling over my heart. And he kept saying things like, how could we have known they would have been so cruel? How could we have known they would do this to you? We're going to make you better. There's so much pain. There's too much pain. No one should ever suffer so much pain. And then he stuck his hand into my torso and he pulled out this thing. It was like a jello. It was shining and vibrating and it was red with electrical sparks going on inside of it. And he held it up to the sky and he says, look what I found. And he was so enthralled with it. And then he comes back to me and he picks me up and he closes up my wound and he says, don't worry. He says, now everything is going to be a little bit easier. He says, you won't feel things so intensely and you're not going to cry so much anymore. He says, I'm not going to give this back to you because you're going to need this when you come back here. He says, these things are very precious, they're very rare. He says, I'm going to keep it for you and I'm going to take care of it, and when you come back I'll give it to you. You're going to need it. And I'm standing there looking at him and like I'm going to argue, right? And so he puts it under his, first he runs to the top of a hill and he puts it up to the light again, and all this lighting and wind starts blowing, and he puts it under his cape and he looks at me like this and he just flies off. So now I'm there with the younger one, and I looked at the younger one and I said, but wait a minute, I think that's mine now. And he says, don't you worry. He says, we need you for the mission. And I said, what mission? He said, oh, you know what mission. So he fixed you now so you can go back. We need you for the mission, so don't worry, when you come back that thing is going to be here. And I'm like, what mission? He says, oh, you know what mission. Stop being so naive. And he takes me up and he throws me into the air. Where I land on the side of a road in a snowstorm. And I see this big truck coming in the snowstorm very, very fast. And then I see this tiny little blue car coming for a head-on collision, the two of them in the middle of the snowstorm. I know the truck is coming too fast and I know that the road is too small and there's no way that both of them are going to pass. And so I put up my hand and I screamed, no! And it was almost like this blinding light came out of my hand and the truck stopped. And the car did 3 spins and smashed into a snowbank. Yeah? And so then I'm lying there in the snowbank, I see the car in the snowbank, the truck whizzes by, and I look up and I say, are they okay? Is everyone alright? And a big voice came down and says, yes, you did really good. Everybody is fine. And I'm on the snowbank there, freezing cold, and I said, well, that's it. I saved these people, I saved the accident, but here I go, I'm in the snowbank in the middle of nowhere, and I'm going to die here. And I'd rendered myself to the idea. The only problem was that the painting wasn't finished yet. That was the only thing that perturbed me, honestly. So that was coat 2 of The Bat Out of Hell. So now it's Christmas Day. That was Christmas Eve, this was Christmas Day. Now I call my sisters to wish them all a Merry Christmas. So one of my sisters, when I called her, I told her my story. I told her what happened about getting poisoned by the stingray. And she almost fell on her ass. And I said, what's wrong? It's a crazy story, but it's not as bad as all that. I'm okay. And she says, no, Johnny. She says, you don't understand. She says, last night I was taking my son, Alex, and his friend to his grandfather's house so that they could spend the weekend skiing. She says, and on the way was a big snowstorm. He says, I didn't want him to drive, so I drove him. She says, it was a really big snowstorm. And all of a sudden I'm on one of these small country roads and I see this big truck, Bolero, speeding full speed ahead towards me. And I'm hardly in control of my car because the snow is so thick. And I know that I cannot get out of the way before this truck comes by and that the road isn't wide enough for both of us. And she says, I started seeing my life flashing before my eyes. And it just says, by some stroke of magic, all of a sudden my car started doing 3 turns and crashed into a snowbank. As the big truck whizzed by, we were unhurt. I said, oh my God, what is this? What is this? Is this intervine dimension? Is this my soul floating around through all kinds of dimensions and somehow being able to take advantage of the fact that one of my siblings was in danger, to use the power of the gods that I had with me at that moment to stop the accident? You cannot call it coincidence, because it was exactly the way it was. And you know, I mean, my sister's a witness, and I didn't know she had almost died in that car that night. Anyway, so I started to realize that this entity, the Bat out of Hell, had some very supernatural powers to it. So now we're on the 3rd coat of this entity. The 3rd coat of this entity was a very difficult time for me. My soulmate Lenny was at home dying. My best friend for 30 years was in the hospital dying. My only girlfriend, mind you. She was in the hospital dying. And it's really funny because these people knew each other before I knew either of them. And then I met each one individually, and I found out that they had been really good friends in the past. And they died in the same week. That's a little strange too. But anyway, so they were both in the hospital suffering. It was one of the last few days that I was sharing the bed with Lenny, because it got to the point that he just couldn't go up and down the stairs anymore. It was too dangerous for him. And so he took to sleeping on the couch. And we eventually got a hospital bed in, but he didn't use it for very long. And so he was at home suffering, and I could see all these entities in the room, spirits that were going to try and take advantage of his weakness to inhabit his soul, or steal his soul, or threaten his eternal well-being. I don't know what they were planning to do, but I could see them, I could feel them, and I wasn't feeling very well at all. I felt like I had to stand up guardian to Lenny as he slept, so that nothing would take advantage of his weakened state and steal his soul. And Terry was in the hospital going through the same suffering, and I just couldn't do it anymore, going from the apartment to the hospital, from the apartment to the hospital, crying along the way and pretending that I was all right so that I could be able to help them. And so finally I said, you know what, this is enough. You've both suffered too much already, and this is enough. I'm going to open the doorway. And so I found a way to be able to escape to my studio for a couple of afternoons. And I went for about 3 afternoons, a couple of hours a day, and I finished this entity, the Bat out of Hell. And of course I was crying at the time because I knew what I was doing. And when it was finally finished, I went home, and I was very, 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 in a very dark space. 3 days later, my girlfriend Terry died. 10 days later, Lenny died. So within 10 days of finishing this piece, they were both dead. So this is the Bat out of Hell is the one that opened up the doors for my suffering friends to be able to have peaceful deaths. And then you've got, this is the house, this is the face of death. This is when I was writing about the house of death, which is an end-of-life center where the good Jews go to die. And it's a very basic face. It looks a little demonic. It looks like death. But it's got one eye over here. It's got one eye over here, the nose and the mouth. But if you look at it like this, here you see like some kind of Viking warrior with a patchy on its head, or some kind of a mask on its head. And here you have a woman with a cape on her head, and she's got snakes in her hair, like the Medusa. And so you've got this face, you've got this face, and then you've got the main face. It's the 3 faces of death that I had to confront in the house of death. was one of the most horrible experiences I've ever had. When I used to go home to walk my dog, I could smell death on me. When I would go back to the hospital, I could smell death all around. There was people wailing, there was people crying, there was suffering and stinky, and I was staying there with him. I was living here with him because I didn't want to leave him alone. So that's the Bad Out of Hell and the House of Death, which leads me now to these little skeletons in the cave. This is cave number 2, and these are the skeletons in the cave. There are 2 of them. One that looks like a male, and one that's greenish in color, and one that looks like a female, and she's reddish in color. And then you have a blue god watching them and playing with himself. The skeletons are in a fornicating position because it's supposed to look like they're trying to breed in the other dimension. The green skeleton would signify Lenny because he was already dead and rotting in the ground. And the red skeleton would signify me because I still had flesh, blood and flesh on my bones. Yeah? And I was trying with all my will to get to the other side, to follow him, to be with him, to be with them. And the blue gods are the gods of friendship, but they're really apathetic. They're with you all the time, but they're really apathetic to your strife. Like, they know you're suffering, there's nothing they can do about it. And they sort of take some kind of uncouth pleasure in watching the suffering that some people have on their journeys, yeah? And here's one blue god, and he's watching the skeletons have sex in the tunnel, and he's totally apathetic to my suffering. And that's where you come to the third pillar, or the first pillar. And this is a pillar, this is the gods. It's a face of a god, if you can see. It's got an eye over here, an eye over here, its nose, its mouth, and its beard. It's a face of a god. And it's the counsel that I'm getting from the runes. This is connecting with my own gods. This is the gods to try and find my journey, to try and find how to deal with this. And so in the mouth of the gods, you have the vixen with the hole in her head. And so the vixen with the hole in her head is the one that can hear the counsel of the gods. She's squirming around all through this painting. She's the same color. As you can see, her body is over here and it extends into the rest of the painting. But basically, she's there. Represents me doing the runes to try and contact with the gods, to try and find my way after this turmoil. And here you have another one of the blue gods. He's holding the broken woman in her hand. The broken woman is featured several times in this painting because that is a reference to me. I am the broken woman. Yes? And so he's holding her in his hands. We're going to stop it for a bit and we're going to come back. We're going to come back here. Here you have the vixen with the hole in her head, and she actually looks a lot like me, but her body extends and it goes all the way to the next pillar. So she connects these 2 pillars, one of the council of the gods and the other one of inner strength. Inside this tunnel you can see that the blue god has her in his hand. The top half of the woman is here and the bottom half of the woman is here. And there's snakes that are coming down and they want to eat her, they want to devour her. But even though these gods are apathetic, they're not completely neutral. Because if he really didn't care, he would just feed me to the snakes. Yeah, he would let me get sick and die too. but somehow I'm in their hands, and even though they don't really love me, they're still taking care of me. There's a lot of snakes coming down through here, because this is the cave of dead friends, yes. These two skeletons over here represent two of my dear girlfriends that have died. One would be Terry Lee, and the other one would be Janine Badcock. We were all working in, there was another friend, Irene, and there was Jackie, but we were 5 girls. And we were working in the bars in the 80s and the 90s. Terry used to come into the bars at the end of the night and sell their quarters of cocaine so that the barmaids could do their cashes. And we became really, really good friends. And unfortunately, all of them are dead except for me. They're all dead. They all died. Yeah. So these two were dead by the time the painting was finished. Another one died later on after. And you also see that they're hugging there in the cave and they're looking at each other. And they were also very good friends. We were 5 of us. We were the bartenders of the gangsters. So we had a lot of fun. I wish I could remember half of the things that I did in that time of my life. It's curious how life takes its own momentum at times and takes you on different passages. Yeah, you become different people as time goes on. And so then here you have the big deadhead death. This would represent my darling Lenny, who was the huge death, the traumatizing death in my life. Yes, and he's laying there. He's sort of connected to the vixen. Her tail comes out through his eye, you see that? And it connects all of them to the pillar of strength. This is like a sort of demonic creature. You see one ear over here, one ear over here. He's got an eye here, an eye here. Here's the rest of his, this is his face, yeah? And he's got one arm that goes up, and the other this way, and the other arm that goes up this way. And he's trying to hold up all the way. These are the gargoyles of purgatory. They're eating the snakes and the worms, and they're the grotesque part of purgatory where they actually enjoy being there. In the waters of the ancestors, you have a face that looks like my friend Patrick when I first came to Cadaques. And here you have a face that looks like Lenny when he died, the skeletal face. But anyway, the creature, he's got big knees, he's got a big belly, and his arms are out, and this is his head, and but because it's using all the strength that I had inside to try and overcome all the obstacles I could possibly overcome, so that I might have a chance at having a little bit more light in my life, yes, and this guy he's a warrior, and he's a fighter, and he's connected to the runic gods, and they're both trying to help me get over this major trauma that was all the death of all of my friends. Yes. Curious thing about this character is there's a number 5 over here, and I have no idea what that number 5 means. I've took it away twice and it reappeared twice. It could be I come from a family of 5 siblings, could be there were 5 great masters, could be I have 5 years left. I don't know what the 5 signifies, but the 5 is there. And so then you see one creature, you see a face over here, so that's 1. Then you have a face over here, 2. Then you have a face over here, 3. A face over here, 4. And and there's one over here, 5. So there's 5 faces that appeared within his design, and the number 5 came out with it too. I still, to this day, I haven't totally understood what this is about, but maybe one day I will. And the pillar of strength is trying, with Rembrandt, to rip open a hole with the little creature here and with the witch. They're all opening a hole so that the light can penetrate through all this darkness. But I have a story to tell you about this cave with the eyes. It's just called the eyes. And when originally it was painted the way it is now. But once I had painted the 3 caves, I wanted to do something different here. I thought it would be really interesting that if you open it, the light would come from the outside and it would get darker as it went into the middle. And I started changing my color scheme for this cave. And I got to the point that I had all the colors made, and what I wanted to do is I wanted to put black in the middle and then the lighter colors coming out to the white at the edge, and I thought it would look like the light was coming into the darkness. But I'm telling you, I had my paintbrush loaded with black paint, and I'm trying to apply the black paint to the painting, and it will not come off the brush. I go on a piece of paper, it comes off the brush. I go to do it over here, it wouldn't come off the brush. So I did, and I forced it to take to the thing, and it was all badly painted and it wouldn't catch, it just wouldn't catch. And I said, fuck that shit. I put my brushes away and I went home. And I had some strange dreams, some scary dreams. I don't remember what they were, but I remember I had some scary dreams. And then the next morning I go back to the studio and I said, okay, well we're going to figure out what's going on here. And I tried it again and the same thing was still happening. So I took my runes and I asked them what the hell was going on. They told me to stop. They said, do not go any further. You are toying with a very dark entity and you do not have the power to overcome the darkness that you will find yourself in. Go back and stay to the initial plan. So I said, okay. I took a little rag with turpentine and I took off everything that I had applied the day before. Now everything was clean again and I did the 3rd coat of the light. And while I was doing the 3rd coat of the background of these caves, there appeared this little creature of the light. Here's his head, here's his one arm, and his legs are over here. Yeah, and that is the first creature of the light. And I put some stones. I put some stones into the eyes, so that sometimes, for no reason at all, a brush of wind or the movement of a curtain, you would catch just a little spark that would come reflecting off the crystals and the lights. Before I terminate this painting, because I believe that we've done everything that we're going to do, I just want to show you one more thing. So you know how I'm always talking about faces appearing in the painting, things appearing, things that I haven't intentionally put in there, that come to surface? Well, I'm going to show you one of those faces. I mean, when I sit before this painting in dim light, I swear to you that there's faces that appear and disappear as I look at it. I haven't looked back enough on these videos to see if it does it on video, but I can't see why it wouldn't. Because digital cameras have a very good ability of capturing spirits in the rooms. I have a collection of spirit paint pictures, but I don't show them because they're not supposed to be for any kind of grandeur. They're just supposed to, for teaching. So, one day I was sitting in my kitchen, I was in Cadaques, and I was sitting in my kitchen cooking. Well, I was cooking. And something caught my eye from the side corner of my eye, and I looked at the painting, and I saw something I had never seen before, and that I definitely did not put in there. At the time, I was painting the light, and I incorporated what I saw into the painting. So, I saw a face. I saw a face which I believe to be the face of I believe it to be the face of DaliGhost, or the Grand Master, the universal painter. And so anyway, here he is. Here's one eye, here's the other eye, here's his nose, here's his mouth, and here's his beard. He's got a horn. Comes all around like that. I did not paint this guy in there. This guy came on his own free will. And if ever you do have the opportunity to visit this painting, I'm sure that you're going to see some things that I haven't told you about, that I haven't mentioned. If you ever do get the chance to read the book, you're going to see a lot more stories like the one I told you. I can't go on and on and on because this is going to go on forever. I'm just telling you the basic ones, the important ones. Yes? So this ends our presentation of him and the Wall of Darkness. And I hope that you liked it. The Phantom is not with us today because he's still under the weather. But hopefully he will be back tomorrow and we'll be dealing with much lighter topics.